Dr. Intan Nurhati and Yani Tanzil study corals together at SMART's Center for Environmental Sensing and Modeling. Through corals, they analyze past changes in the environment and regional climate, and how the environment affects the health and growth processes of corals. Dr. Intan and Yani regularly go diving to extract coral samples. Yani establishes the age of the coral samples, and Dr. Intan analyzes them to reconstruct the past environment.
Our research involves looking at corals. First of all, we must be able to find the corals. So what we do is we go out into the field and survey the reefs to find large coral colonies which we can use for our work. What we do is we dive and we core the coral to retrieve a long core that can extend meters and are in an age over a few decades to reconstruct the past environment as well as the growth rates and the health of the coral itself over this time span. Once we get back to the lab with the coral core, what we first have to do is to clean it, and we have to slab it into slices which are workable for both myself and Intan. After that, we're able to bring it to the hospital, or in this case to the clinic, to x-ray the corals, look at it under the long wavelength ultraviolet light to look at the luminescent bands from which we can date annual bands in the corals. And from there, Intan can sample the corals and analyze it to reconstruct various environmental parameters. If you have different species, it can be more difficult or different to drill, but industry standard for geochemistry is this coral. Industry standard for looking at growth rates and these banding patterns is this. So we mostly use this particular group of corals. In Singapore, you take the coral, you bring it to the hospital, and then you put it under the X-ray, and you get this. The special thing about Singapore corals is that if you put it under ultraviolet light, what you see is these luminescent bands, and you can now see clearly the annual banding pattern. And from there, we can date the coral and date the year. So for this particular one, we dated it back to about 1974.